Well, good morning, guys. It's Pastor Andy. Today is Tuesday, the 21st of July, and we're still in Psalm 119, and we're continuing our study in verse 113 down to verse 120. This section of Psalm 119 has to do with dealing with the enemy. Because if you are a person of God, if you are a believer, if you're a person of faith, we have enemies. They're going to come after us. There's going to be people who want to do us harm because of our faith. He starts off in verse 113, I hate those with divided loyalties. Those words there, divided loyalties, means half-heartedness. He's saying, I hate people who are half-hearted. I hate it when people give half but not all. They're just kind of half in the Christian life and half not. They're just kind of, they're that lukewarm, they're wishy-washy, they're all over the place. They're not all in or all out. They're just halfway. And even God says in the book of Revelation, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. I wish you were either hot or cold, but instead because you're lukewarm, I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. Nobody likes a half-on, half-off person, a person who rides the fence, a person who's not all in or all out. We call them political people. They're playing the politics of the situation. Whoever they're around is who they're like and who they're following. They don't have a backbone. They're weak. They're wimps. They won't take a stand for anything. And the psalmist says, I hate people who are half-hearted, people with divided loyalties, but I love your instructions. You are my refuge and my shield. Your word is my source of hope. Get out of my life, you evil-minded people. We should all feel that way. People who have an evil mind should not have a close relationship with us, for I intend to obey the commands of the Lord. He's talking about God protecting his people in this section. Then he transitions and talks about God upholding the obedient. He says, Lord, sustain me as you promised that I may live. Do not let my hope be crushed. Then the next verse, 117, says, sustain me, and I will be rescued. That word sustain has to do with aid, has to do with aid coming from God, being upheld, him taking care of us, him meeting our needs. So the psalmist is saying, God, would you please meet my needs? And we know that God has promised to meet all of our needs according to his riches and glory. If my needs being met comes from his riches and glory, I'll never have a need that won't be met because God is all powerful. He owns everything. I will never exhaust the limits of his treasures and his help, his aid. Verse 118 goes on and talks about God rejecting the wicked. He said, but you have rejected all who stray away from your decrees. They are only fooling themselves. There are people who fool themselves. They believe a lie. They are willingly ignorant because their life is based on lies. Have you ever met someone who just couldn't tell the truth to save their life? And the more they tell the stories, the more they believe the stories, and the more they tell the stories, the bigger they get. And before you know it, they've got all these stories, and you can't believe anything they say because you don't know if any of it's true. They've built this whole false life that they want us to believe. And we're not supposed to be around people like that. We're not supposed to be around people who we can't depend on their word. They're only fooling themselves. God has rejected them. What does he say about them in verse 119? You skim off the wicked of the earth like scum. No wonder I love your laws, and I tremble in fear of you. I stand in awe of your regulations. We should stand in awe of God because of who he is and what he's done. We are going to face enemies. There's one major enemy, because people are never our enemy. They may appear to be, they might have the look of being our enemy, but ultimately, when you get down to the root of it, they are not our enemy. Our enemy is Satan, and he can use people to come after us. And we need to be careful that we don't lash out or attack the person instead of the one who is behind it. Because people are never our enemy, and we should never, there's never, never, never. My dad used to teach this as a kid. There's never an excuse, there's never a reason, and there's never a time for a Christian to be unkind. That's our job. We are to show the love of Christ. By this shall all men know that you're my disciples, by the way you take a stand on my word, by how mean you are to people who don't believe like you. All people are going to know you're my disciples because you're always right. No, it doesn't say any of that. It says, by this shall all men know that you're my disciples, by your love one for another. We've got to show Christ's love. Now, sometimes we have to speak the truth. And we have to tell people, we have to lovingly correct, but we speak the truth in love. Love should be at the root of everything. Jesus was asked by someone trying to trick him and said, "What's the greatest commandment?" And what did Jesus say? One, you should love the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. On these two hang all the law and the prophets. If I get these two coat hooks right, these two hooks that hold up, everything else will fall off of these. If I get these two right, everything else falls into place. If I love God like I should, my spiritual life will be right. If I love my neighbor like myself, if I will be looking out for others and I will treat them the right way. One takes care of the inside, one takes care of the outside. And I need to have both of them so that I can be more like Jesus. So I can be a true disciple, a true follower, a true student, a true pupil of Jesus Christ. So when we face our quote-unquote enemies, let's show the love of Jesus Christ even to them, because they need it too. I hope you get into God's Word and see what He has for you today. And until tomorrow, God bless you and have a great day.